Hi guys, and welcome back to the Emily Knits channel. My name is Emily. If you're new here, I am a knitter, crocheter based in the north of Nottinghamshire in the UK, where I live with my other half and our dogs close to Sherwood Forest. Today I thought we would do a bit of a different video. So somebody asked me in a comment a couple of weeks ago, could I talk about some of the YouTubers that I watch? And I thought that was a really good idea because there's some channels that I think are possibly a little bit less talked about that I watch quite a lot, and I would really like to give them a shout out. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do a bit of a knitting chat. I am going to be working on my Melida dress, which I'm working on at the moment. If you want more details about this, then go check out my podcast episodes. There's one last week. There'll be one coming next week as well with an update on there. And I am going to work away on this whilst we talk about some of the YouTubers I watch, and hopefully you find some inspiration from these. So without further ado, I'm going to join on my next ball of yarn because I need to, and we shall get going. If I'm looking down a bit, I'm going to be either looking at my knitting, or I have a notepad there as well where I can talk about that has the notes of the people that I want to talk about on it as well. So excuse me if I'm looking down, and yeah, without any further ado and any more waffle, let's crack on. So I think before we get into talking about the channels, I think it's important to talk about what I look for in a YouTube channel, because that might be very different to what you look for, and you know, it might help you to make a decision whether these people are going to be people that you would like to watch their content too. Let me just do a couple of stitches on this so that I can get the yarn joined in and we can start flowing. There. Okay, there we go. Okay, so yeah, what do I look for in a YouTuber? The first thing, and one of the biggest things for me, is, are they size inclusive? So I've mentioned quite a lot on my podcast, but if you're new here, you might not know, I am a plus size knitter. I have a 47 to 50 inch bust depending on time of the month. My weight fluctuates a little bit. I'm also 6 foot tall. My hips are something ridiculous, like 50 odd inches or something. I have a very big bum and I am very definitely a plus size knitter. Usually there is a size in patterns that I can knit, not always. Sometimes there's a very notable one recently that's had a test knit call out from quite a big designer that even at the biggest size is nowhere near me. It's probably about 7 inches under my bust size, which is mental. But even if I'm the biggest size in the pattern, I don't want to knit that. I don't want to knit that, and I don't want to put it out on here because I shouldn't have to be forcing myself to fit into that. And also, like, I shouldn't be the biggest size. I'm not saying I'm small, but I'm also not the biggest person out there, and there should be small sizes as well. So size inclusivity is massive for me. And whilst I'm not necessarily saying that I will only watch other plus size YouTubers or anything like that. You'll see there's plenty of people in here who are a variety of different shapes, sizes and everything. There was one YouTuber, I'm not going to mention their name or their channel because I don't wish them any ill will, but I did have them on my list to talk about today, and then I took them off because I've actually stopped watching them a bit, because for the most part I love their podcasts and everything. And I sort of, people should knit what they want and knit for their size, and this particular person is quite a small size and quite petite, and that's fine. But it was particularly some pattern roundups that they did, and I was really disappointed, actually, not in them, just the feeling of disappointment, because there was a couple of things in there that I really liked and that I wanted to knit, and I went to go and find these patterns only to discover that I didn't fit. I wasn't even the top size. I just wasn't in there at all. And honestly, it left a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth, because I think as a YouTuber, there are some examples on here. There's a couple particularly that I can think of that are straight size themselves or a smaller size, and they have called out designers and things on their channels, and they have talked about how certain patterns aren't size inclusive, so they won't be continuing to buy from those designers in future. And I think that's really, really important. So for me it absolutely is. That feeling of disappointment when I couldn't knit those things that I wanted to was really quite high. So that is massively important for me. Like I say, I believe people should be able to knit what they want, and if you're a size that fits in those, great. But what I don't want is to watch your podcast or something and be really inspired to knit something only to discover that I can't because it doesn't fit me. So people that that's it mainly. People for whom size inclusivity is important enough that they will make sure that patterns that they're recommending are size inclusive, so that I can actually then go and knit them. And that is important for me, because the other thing that I look for is, are the things that they're making something I'll wear, or are they something that I will take inspiration from? One of my favourite things to do if I discover a new channel is quite often, one of my favourite things to do when I discover a new channel is quite often to see if they've got an everything I knit in a year kind of video. And I'll watch those as a starting point, because they're a really good way to tell the kind of things that they knit. Do they just knit petite knit patterns? Because honestly, I find that quite boring. Again, entirely personal preference. I don't want to watch another channel that just knits petite knit. Do they knit things that are, excuse me, things that I would wear, things that I would, and it doesn't need to be things that I would wear, but sometimes things that I'm inspired by, or I really like that colour, or I don't like necessarily that particular pattern, but that shape is really interesting. I haven't considered that. And sometimes I just watch a channel and go, nope. And it's just, you know, the stuff that's being made is not stuff that interests me, so I'm not going to take much out of that. It doesn't, like I say, it doesn't have to be everything you knit I want to knit. And I'm not the kind of person who, if somebody knits petite knit pattern, that's it, I'm done, I'm never going to watch you again. It's just, you all know who, you know, you all have come across channels, I'm sure, like I have, where everything they knit is a petite knit pattern or something like that, and it's just, can we do something different? Like, can we just have something a bit more different? So that's something I absolutely look for. And then a big thing, and I think this is the same for all of us, is just personality, isn't it? We're watching people at the end of the day, and they can be fantastic. There was a channel I discovered the other day, and I can't even remember her name because I started watching the video, and on paper it ticked a lot of things. She was based in the UK, which I quite like, because again, things that are accessible to her will be accessible to me. She was quite focused on budget yarns, which again, you know from watching my podcasts, that's something that's quite important to me. She says knitting for Olive Pure Silk, but we won't talk about that. And she was focused on plus size crochet garments quite often, and it was all of her videos had plus size in them, and I was like, great, absolutely fantastic. And do you know what? I think I wasn't the audience it was intended for. I think she was aiming for a younger audience than me, and I just didn't vibe with her, and I found it a little bit almost stressful to watch, and that sounds like really dramatic. That sounds really dramatic, but it just wasn't something that I enjoyed massively. I ended up not finishing the video, and I haven't gone back to watch any of her others, and that's fine, because I don't think my content would be something that she would enjoy massively either. So that's fine. Everybody's different. We all have our own personalities. I think as YouTubers, when you go, certainly as a newer YouTuber, you tend to emulate the content that you like. So I tend to like people who put out content a bit more like me, a little bit lower editing, although they're not all like that. I do quite like I said, UK based, but again, there are plenty in here that aren't. And I like quite sort of chill, cozy, casual stuff. Outside of knitting content, I really enjoy things like daily life vlogs and things like that, and I think that's reflected in the kind of knitting content that I like as well. I just like quite a down-to-earth kind of thing, so that's what I'm looking for generally, and some of the things that you like might not fall into that. So yeah, with all that being said, I spent 10 minutes waffling about what I like in a YouTube video, which is not what I intended to do. So let's get into the actual video. I'm going to go through these in a bit of an order. So there are sort of a few different categories for me when it comes to YouTube videos. The first ones I'm going to talk about are relatively large YouTube channels. I say that, but then for this video, I've looked at people's sort of subscriber numbers so I can give you an idea of if they're a large channel or not. And actually, these are fairly mid-range channels. But I suspect, particularly if you're somebody that enjoys my content, you will probably have come across these channels. They are very well known, certainly in the sort of circles that I move in. Oh, that sounds really really swanky, doesn't it? Like, I don't mean that. In the corner of the internet that I watch, in the corner of the knitting community that I watch, these people are mentioned very regularly. They're very popular, and they're the ones I'm going to touch on first. I'm not going to go into massive detail of them because you will probably know them and you will probably have come across them. Then there is the next one is people who I recommend and I really like their content, but they're not like the first thing that springs to mind when you ask me to talk about a channel. And yeah, that's not quite the way. Yeah, I enjoy their content. I would recommend them, but I watch them for like a specific reason or something like that. And I sort of dip in and dip out, and I like their content, but when I'm in a specific mood. Next category we're going to talk about is a bit of a mix. There are 3 channels in there I'm going to talk about that are quite new to me, that I've only discovered recently. So I'm loving them, but you know, it's one of them literally was only about a couple of weeks ago I discovered her, and I've gone absolutely ham on her content. But you know, it's not a long-term channel that I've kept coming back to. And there is a couple of others in there that, like, again, that I really like their content, but it's not like an instant, as soon as they come out, I'm going to sit down and watch. And that is the final category, is the sort of what I would maybe call like ride or die YouTubes, which sounds, again, really, really wanky, let's be honest. But people who I will watch pretty much everything that they put out. They put out a video and I will instantly save it to my watch later if I can't watch it there and then. And people that I really, really recommend and I really rate. And they tend to be, actually, with one exception, they're quite small channels. They're some of the smallest ones that I've got to mention on here. So that gives you a bit of an indication of the kind of people, again, that I like to watch. So let's get into it. So let's start talking first off about, like I say, the channels that I think you will know, but that I like to watch anyway. So I'm not going to go into massive amounts of detail. First off, we'll start with Laalee Knits. She has 121,000 subscribers. I'm going to put the details up here, you know, where you can find her and everything. Laalee Knits is Bethany. She is an American expat living in Belgium. She doesn't put out massive amounts of content anymore because she has a young family, and I think she's probably just about had her second baby. She was due anytime, so I think, you know, I've not seen her in a bit, and that's probably why. So congratulations if she has. But I really liked her. I discovered her before she was married, when she was doing quite a lot of her own designs and things. And I like, now she's quite a slow-paced knitter, and she's not afraid to talk about that. And I like the fact that she knits with colours and patterns and things that I wouldn't otherwise come across. She doesn't knit very many of her own patterns anymore. She has gone back to, because as a new mum, she hasn't really got time. But I just really enjoy her content, and I find her quite calming and soothing to watch. I'm sure with 121,000 subscribers, most of you probably heard of Bethany, and she is one of the biggest channels on here. Another one is Laura Penrose. Again, I think most of you have heard of Laura. I do really enjoy Laura's content. She has just over 22,000 subscribers, or she had it at the time of filming. She's got a Patreon, she's got some fantastic designs out, and I think she hits a really, really good balance. If she talks about her own designs, but she also talks about other patterns that she's knitting as well. And I just really like her content. She's very open and honest about her struggles with her mental health, her struggles with her eating and exercising and things like that. And she is UK based, and I just, yeah, she's somebody that I feel like, it's one of them, isn't it? You feel like you're chatting with a friend. You sit in and watching the video and you feel like you're chatting with a friend, and Laura is definitely one of those. I really, really love her Vlogmas and Vlogmas in July when she does that. But I do watch her podcast episodes as well. Another one to mention that is sort of similar to that is the Creabea. Again, I'm sure most of you know the Creabea. I've been watching the Creabea since, I think I got recommended her by the algorithm probably on about her 3rd episode, and I went back and watched the first ones as well. And I'll be entirely honest that recently I haven't been watching them as much, and the main reason for that is because she mainly talks about her own designs. Excuse me, I sneeze. Yeah, she mainly talks about her own designs, which as a designer, I'm not a designer, I can completely understand that as a designer you want to do that. It just always is going to be a little bit of a double-edged sword, in that the designs that she's got at the moment I'm not hugely drawn in by, which means that I'm not hugely drawn in by listening to the process of designing them and the testing and things like that. So but again, certainly her earlier content I really, really enjoyed, and I do still watch them from time to time. It just isn't as instant, and particularly if it's a podcast that comes out around a pattern release, unless it's a pattern that I'm interested in, I'm probably not going to go watch it, and I think that's probably fair enough. But I like, again, she's one of the YouTubers I mentioned who really talks about size inclusivity, and she's called out a design that she's knit before and challenged the designer and asked if she had any plans to make it more inclusive, because she didn't realise until actually after she bought it that it wasn't inclusive. So despite being a fairly, I don't want to say normal, because that's not, you know, a fairly straight size herself, she does advocate for that, and that was one of the reasons she talks about that she got into pattern designing, because she wanted to understand how easy it actually was to create a size inclusive pattern by doing it herself, how easy or difficult. Excuse me. And she does have some fantastic designs. She's got a couple that I've got in my pattern library to be knit. It's just the recent stuff that I'm just not as much of a fan of. I'm not a big fan of the Tolster, for example, and a lot of what she's doing at the moment is variations on that, and it's just, you know, it's purely down to not liking the stuff she's talking about at the moment, but that is, you know, no reflection on her, and absolutely fine. And I think there's only one more to talk about in this category, which is Jonathan's Days, and it's so he's got about, oh sorry, I forgot, the Creabea has about 27,500 subscribers, so again fairly mid-range when you look at the likes of Bethany that's got 121, and there's another one that we're going to talk about that's got several 100,000. But the other one I really like to watch from time to time is Jonathan's Days. Again, similarly, I really enjoy that Jonathan is a man creating a knitting podcast, because there aren't many. Again, he's UK based, he's based in London, but he's originally from Northern Ireland, and he uses some really interesting fibres. One thing that I don't engage with as much with Jonathan is he uses a lot of spin cycle, which for me is just not cost effective. I've got a skein that was a treat when my other half and I got engaged. We went to a yarn shop the day after and he bought me a skein as a treat. And so that's the only skein that I have, and that's the only skein that I will, because it's so expensive. But he does, again, he knits some patterns that I wouldn't otherwise think of. He uses yarns that I wouldn't otherwise think of, and I really like that he's a man in a knitting podcast. And it's nice to be able to look at the things that he knits and recommends for a masculine presenting body, because if I'm knitting for my other half, things like that, it's good to have that recommendation. So again, you probably watch him. He has about just over 11,000 subscribers at the moment. And he had a bit of a break where he wasn't posting as regularly, but he's posting much more regularly now, and I do tend to watch the podcasts at some point after they've come out. Moving into the next category then, that I recommend them, but I dip in and out of, are the specific things that I like. The first one is Woolly Mammoth Fibre Co, which is Emma Robinson, and I'm sure most of you have heard of Emma. She does some absolutely beautiful, beautiful yarns. I've never had the privilege of trying them yet, but they are gorgeous, all naturally dyed. She's got just under 19,000 subscribers. And I really like her podcasts for when I'm looking for something properly slow and cozy. Quite often I find with her, the stuff that she knits isn't necessarily something I would want to knit, but I can take inspiration from the colours and things like that. So I do still enjoy watching them for that. And like I say, if you're looking for something cozy, Woolly Mammoth, she absolutely has you. I also really enjoyed watching her yarn studio renovation vlogs that she did recently. I found those really, really interesting. Another one, where are we on the list? There we go. Another one to talk about is High Fibre Knits, which is Emily, which obviously I like her because she's called Emily. She has about 18,000 subscribers, 17.6 thousand subscribers at the time of filming. She is based in Canada. And I like her podcasts, but I tend to dip in and dip out of those. Excuse me. What I really like that Emily produces are her not her pattern roundups, her knitting planners, or knitting trends videos. So she does seasonal knitting trends, and she must put so much time and effort into researching those. She looks at colours, she looks at patterns, she looks at textures that are being seen all the time, and I get a lot of inspiration from those. I really, really do. So she's fantastic, and I like the way that she presents things. She's got a very calm, measured and considered way of presenting herself and presenting the information, and I do really enjoy those. Excuse me. Another one that comes into that category is Little Drops of Wonderful, and also This Little Wonderful Life. So they're both run by the same person. One is not a knitting channel, I will say that off the bat. They are both run by Laalee, who is a knitter and crocheter based in the south of the UK somewhere. Yeah, I think Kent maybe. I could be getting that wrong. She has two channels. This Little Wonderful Life is just a daily vlog channel, so I love that because I love that kind of content. And Little Drops of Wonderful is a knitting and crochet podcast. And what I really like about Ali's content is that she does quite a lot of patterns and things and uses yarn dyers that I've never heard of but that are accessible to me in the UK. So I do get, again, a lot of inspiration from there. Particularly crochet inspiration, because she has a good mix of both, and I think if anything she probably crochets a little bit more than she knits, certainly in the recent podcast that I've seen. So I really enjoy those and I get a lot from those, definitely. Ali has on on the Little Drops of Wonderful channel, she's got about 26.3k subscribers. I didn't look at the This Little Wonderful Life videos, but she's got 2 channels, and I think they're probably a very similar size. So she's got a good following, definitely. And I really like that she's UK based, and you just see normal family life. You know, you see her cooking tea, you see her teenage daughters and things like that. I really enjoy it. Those are the ones then. Those are all of the ones that I sort of dip in and out of, or there's a particular reason that I like them. Like with Emily of High Fibre Knits, I really like those particular roundup videos that she does, the pattern trends and things like that. And now we're getting into the ones that I'm going to talk in a bit more detail about. Okay, so the first one I want to mention, I have completely forgotten to get the subscriber numbers for, and I'm really sorry, but I think she's definitely a smaller channel, and that is Laalee Bee Knits, which is Natalie. Natalie is a relatively new discovery to me. So these are the category that that are relatively new discoveries, or that I recommend, but maybe they don't put out as much content, kind of thing. Natalie's had a bit of a break because she's not been very well, but also the algorithm only suggested it to me maybe about 3 months ago. So she's relatively new to me. She is based in Northern Ireland. Excuse me. She knits a lot of socks and shawls and things like that. She's a very prolific knitter, very, very prolific knitter, and also a larger knitter like me. So again, a similar body, things like that. And she uses some colours that I wouldn't ever think of. She's very drawn to pinks and purples and blues, and I've discovered patterns through her and colour combinations through her. And she's a smaller channel, so there is much sort of lower editing. It's a little bit more, I guess, casual, sitting and chatting with a friend. And again, really, really enjoy that. She does use some dyes that they're not inaccessible to me. I could get them from Northern Ireland, but obviously the shipping's a bit higher because it's coming from technically overseas, even though it's not. So yeah, that's one thing I always bear in mind, but I would say she's well worth giving a look to. 3 that are relatively new. In fact, we'll go on to those in a minute. There's 2 more that you've probably heard of. They're quite large channels, and that I think recently there hasn't been as much content from them, but I do really, really enjoy. So one of them is Karoline's Knits, who I'm sure you've probably heard of. She has just over 7,000 subscribers. I really like Karoline's content because she's very, I guess, straightforward. She just says it how it is. So she's originally from Denmark and she now lives in Scotland. She is expecting her first baby, and I've been there to watch her go through, you know, getting married and all that sort of stuff. She does knit quite a lot of petite knit, but she knits knit flitter, and my favourite thing is knitwear and things like that as well. And she's quite open about her challenges that she finds and whether she does or doesn't wear the things afterwards. And I just quite like that sort of quite straightforward, what you see is what you get kind of approach. She's not been putting out massive amounts of content lately, which, you know, life gets in the way. I absolutely understand, but that's the reason she's in number 2, not number 1, because when she puts something out, I'm like, oh yeah, great, I can't wait to watch that. But yeah, it's just not always that often. And the other one is Emma C Makes. Emma has around, I can't read my own writing, I think that's 38.8 thousand subscribers, so she's certainly one of the larger channels on here. One of the things I love about Emma is I'm fairly certain she's from my neck of the woods, from her accent. I could be completely wrong, and I don't know if I'm certain with my small viewership numbers. Emma C Makes probably won't watch this, but I am sorry if I've got that wrong. From her accent, I am fairly certain she's from East Yorkshire, from a particular town in East Yorkshire, or city in East Yorkshire, that I'm not going to say, in case I am right and I'm putting it on the internet and she doesn't want it sharing. But I grew up, if I'm right, I grew up about 20 minutes from where she's from, and my parents still live there. So listening to her is like going home a little bit. It's like going home. And I really rate the stuff that she makes. Again, she does some beautiful patterns. She does some really beautiful crochet patterns and tutorials and things, and uses a lot of pinks and sort of muted neutrals that I wouldn't normally be drawn to, but that look stunning together. And I really enjoy her content again. And then the next 3 in this category are 3 that are relatively new to me, that I've only discovered relatively recently, but so far I'm really enjoying. So the first one is Breathing Yarn. Now she's got about 9,000 subscribers currently. She's based in America somewhere, and I only discovered her maybe a month or 2 ago. I really like her content. She does quite a lot of editing on her videos. It's very clear, it's very well edited. And it's almost like a Wes Anderson kind of vibe to it. Her colour matching and coordination and everything is gorgeous. And she, first off, isn't afraid to show, again, the challenges that she's had. This isn't what I didn't like this because this went wrong, or I've made a mess of this, so I'm going to rip this back, or this is how many whips I've got. She's also got a very considered way of looking at things. She really considers colours, she really considers textures, and I've really enjoyed her content. It's very different than a lot of stuff that's out there because of the editing and stuff that she puts in, and it's very specific to her, I think, but I really like it. She's also got a very dry sense of humour, and very dry way of sort of approaching everything and putting herself out there, which I really enjoy. The next one that is a relatively new discovery is aka Nora Knits. She has just over 9.7 thousand subscribers, and again, only discovered her in the last couple of months. There's a couple of things I really like about Nora, and she's actually sort of influenced my own knitting practice a bit. So she has absolutely no problem in, I was talking about this to Lauren of Work Knits yesterday, because we had like a knit and chat evening between the two of us, and we were talking about, as a YouTuber sometimes, and I think even just putting yourself on Instagram, being on social media as a knitter, it's very easy to fall foul of the pressure to, oh my god, I've got to finish something. And Bethany of Well Loved Knits has talked about the same thing. I've got to finish something because I've got to have something finished to show. I need to make a post, or I need to make a video, and I need to have a finished object. And it's very easy to put that pressure on yourself. And one of the things that I love that Nora does, she posts every week, every Saturday, at the same time every week, and she will just talk about the project she's working on until they're done. She currently has, I think, 3 or 4 projects on the go, and that tends to be about the normal number that she seems to have. And every week she will give you an update of how many days it's been on the needles and where she's got to it. And she will start by talking about the things that have been on the needles the longest. So she's working on the sand cardigan at the moment by Ulan Knitwear, and I think that's been on the needles 100 and something days, and she's talked about it every podcast episode that she's done to work on it, and she's just updated us on the date. So she doesn't, most of the episodes she doesn't have a finished object, and that's fine. And that has really helped me to take a step back and go, you don't have to finish that. You don't have to like break your hands to try and finish that in time to get on the podcast. And I really enjoy that. She also knits, I don't think she's knit anything that I have come across yet, except that I've previously come across, except one pattern by the Knit Pearl Girl, but she did it in a completely different way. She used a really interesting combination of yarns. She knits things that I never would consider. She's quite big on thrifting yarn, so that's also very interesting, how she then uses it up. And I just really like that she has absolutely no problem coming back on week after week, talking about the same projects that she's working on until they're done. Because at the end of the day, this should be a hobby, and it should be a relatively slow hobby. You're making your own clothes. It shouldn't be a race to the finish. So yeah, I really, really appreciate that. And I also love the little graphics she's created that are all like made out of knit stitches and stuff, and she's got a great sense of humour in her editing, and I think it's really quite funny as well. So really enjoying her. Again, relatively new discovery, but really enjoying what she does. And the last one to talk about in this category is PassioKnit Kelsie. Now Kelsie is absolutely the biggest channel that I watch, and I only discovered her a couple of weeks ago through the algorithm suggesting her to me. But Kelsie has 618,000 subscribers, and I think that's the biggest I think I might have ever seen for a knitting channel. She's called PassioKnit Kelsie, and she does knit, but she does a lot of crochet. And that's one of the things that I find inspiring in there, is that it's very different than what I do. So she has, she's based in America. She's quite a bit younger than me, not that it matters, but I think it's just different stuff that she makes that I maybe wouldn't come across so much. And she has a store where she sells crocheted, hand knit and hand crocheted items. And she uses a lot of like Lily Sugar and Cream cotton and things like that, and Banat velvet yarn, and she makes scrunchies, and she makes tote bags, and she makes little cropped bralettes and things like that, and she makes things in pride flag colours and ace flag colours and trans flag colours. And it's just so satisfying to watch. And she does some tutorials, she does some challenge videos, which I love. She'll do how many of this can I crochet in 24 hours. I really enjoy those. And I first discovered her through a how many balls of yarn can I use up in a month video, which you better believe I sat and watched the entire way through, and I have watched it again since because I really enjoyed it. And she then does weekly vlogs, which are basically her making orders, packing orders, stocking the shop, and for whatever reason I really, really enjoy it. So this is the channel that I only discovered 2 weeks ago. And when I say to you, I have watched some of her content every single day since I've discovered her, I have. I'm going through the back catalogue. I just, for whatever reason, also one of her dogs is so like mine. That's probably part of it. He looks nothing like Pepper. But some of the behaviours and some of the things he does, I just watch him and go, that's Pepper. Like, they separated at birth. That's Pepper. That's the same kind of stuff he does, coming up and staring at me until I give him attention and things like that. So yeah, I really, really vibed with Kelsie. And it's been watching her videos that's made me want to start doing some more crochet to stash bust some of my stuff. So yeah, very, very much enjoying watching her. I think that's been fab. And now we're getting into like my top 4. So these, I say they're my top 4. They're people who I have been subscribed to for quite a while, or I've been aware of for quite a while, who they put out a video and I tend to go watch it straight away. If I can't watch it straight away, I will add it to my watch later playlist. And I'm going to go into a bit more detail about each of them, why I watch them, what I like about them. So the first one to mention is, we'll go by size from the biggest to the smallest because there are no favourites in this category. I love them all equally. The biggest channel on this list is Retro Claude, who has around 59,000 subscribers. Claude is a UK-based trained sewist and also knitter and sometimes crocheter. I originally discovered Claude through her knitting content from a few years back. She did, again, like an Everything I Knit in 2023 style video or something like that. It won't have been 2023, I've been watching her longer than that. But I have watched most of her content, including her sewing content, despite the fact that I'm not a sewist, because I just love the way she presents things. One thing that I really, really enjoy about Claude is she does not shy away from talking about she has a disability. She knits and crochets and sews with a disability. She is perfectly free and happy talking about how that affects her and how she has to make adjustments, and being perfectly open about the adjustments she makes when she's crafting to make it work for her. She also has quite a, as you might have guessed from the name, Retro Claude. She really likes knitting vintage patterns and things like that, and a lot of them, because I'm bigger, they don't really come in my size. She has done some where she has graded them up to a bigger size, and I really want to try and knit a couple of those. But also I just really love watching her knit them. I really, really love watching her knit them. It's very down-to-earth content. I really, really rate Claude. And she's done as well, one of the things that I've absolutely loved that she's done that has inspired some of the content I'm currently creating behind the scenes to put out for you at the end of this month. She has done a whole series of stash busting, and I've really enjoyed watching that. She's been doing it for about 2 and a bit years, challenging herself to get through her stash, and she's actually recently put it all of the separate monthly videos into one big video, so you can sit there and watch 6 hours of it, which is wonderful. You can bet I went back and watched it all again in that big video form. So really, really rate Claude. She is just very, very British sense of humour, very open about challenges and struggles. Honestly, perfectly open about if she's had a bad day as well and she hasn't been able to do as much as she wanted, and what you know, how she's going to deal with that. And I really, really, really love her channel, and I cannot recommend it highly enough. The next one down on the list, if we're going down by size, is Knitted by Whitney. You've probably heard me mention Whitney before. Whitney is absolutely fab. So Whitney, I believe, that's what happened there, I combined that. Whitney, I believe, is based in Canada. I'm really sorry if I'm wrong. I will correct that if I'm wrong. And Whitney is a very, very similar size to me. So she has a very similar, I think she's probably got about a 50-inch bust, she said. And I just love seeing another plus size creator like that on the internet. Whitney does a combination of podcasts and pattern roundups, and I've been aware of Whitney's channel for quite a while. I didn't originally subscribe because of the way that she used to knit was very different to the way that I knit. So Whitney, when she originally started, was quite open about being a very monogamous knitter, and she would knit on one project and she'd talk about that project at the end. And if you've watched my podcast, you know that I am not. At the moment, I have 3-4 projects on the go, and that is about as low as it gets for me. Any less than that and it doesn't feel like enough. I am not a monogamous knitter at all. And it just didn't vibe with me as much. But one thing I have always watched of Whitney's that I've really enjoyed is her pattern roundup. She puts a hell of a lot of time and effort into her pattern roundups, and and they're all size inclusive, so I highly recommend going and checking them out. I have recently subscribed and got back into the podcast as well, because she is now much more of a non-monogamous knitter, and again, she knits from designers that I'd never heard of until her, but I can, with Whitney as well, I can absolutely trust that those designs are going to be size inclusive, because if they fit her, they're going to fit me, and I can see them on her and go, I like how that looks, or I don't like how that looks. I wouldn't, you know, there was a top that she really wrote, and she looks gorgeous in it. She looks absolutely gorgeous in it. It's got a big lace panel down the front, and I just look at it and go, I don't like that on me, but I really like this shape of that top, so I want to knit something like that moving forward. So yeah, really rate Whitney. She does some fantastic content on her Instagram as well. She puts out a lot of reels and videos and posts, and yeah, she's just a massive proponent of size inclusivity in the industry, and it's really nice to see somebody who is the same size and shape as me also, you know, raising awareness. Whitney's got about 5,000 subscribers. I can't remember if I said that. Then we've got, next down is Shaiyeh. Now Shaiyeh used to be Witchy Knits, that was how I discovered her, and she's changed the channel name. It's now Shaiyeh. Sorry, Shaiyeh. She calls herself Shaiyeh, so we'll go by that. And Shaiyeh is a knitter based in, I think, Sweden. I discovered her, God, probably about 5 years ago, and she had a bit of a break for about a year, and she's back now, and she's posting regularly, and she does day in the life vlogs. She crochets, she knits, she uses quite a lot of very bright colours, and she knits quite a lot of gothic-y, witchy stuff, which again is stuff that I wouldn't normally knit, but I absolutely love, and she rocks it. And she posts about other hobbies. She's posted about diamond painting, she posts about going and horse riding, she posts about painting Warhammer minis, and I just absolutely love watching her content. Again, in the past she's been quite open about challenges with mental health. She's quite open about health problems she's going through at the moment. She's quite open about, you know, she's going to therapy and things like that, and I think it's important to share those kind of things. It's very easy to try and want to put a front on, and I really like that she does, but I just absolutely love her content. She's a really warm, likable person, again, funny, very funny, and does things that I would never consider and would never be aware of if she hadn't put them forward. She also has the most gorgeous big fat ginger cat called Cheddar, who gets involved in most of, she's got two, but the other one, Elsa, doesn't really get involved in the videos. Cheddar is her version of Pepper, who always likes to get involved and is just beautiful. So massive selling point there for me. Shaiyeh's got just over 3.1k subscribers, so a smaller channel. And then the smallest one, who you've heard me mention before, I've mentioned her already on this channel, is Work Knits, who is Lauren, who is the fabulous Lauren. So I discovered Lauren back when her channel was fairly new. Again, the algorithm pushed her towards me, and I watched, it was like I think it was an everything I've knit kind of video, and I watched that, and I just, you know, when you just watch somebody and you're like, yeah, I like this content, I like the way she presents things. One of the things that really drew me to Lauren there's a couple of things. First off, she is UK based. Again, I've mentioned I like that. She is, again, like the Creabea, a big proponent of size inclusivity, and has mentioned with one of the designs she's been knitting recently that she didn't realise until after she'd bought the pattern that it wasn't size inclusive, and she won't be buying from the designer again. So again, and she's designed her own patterns to be size inclusive so that she can again show that it is doable and it is possible. She knits a really wide range of things. She does knit some petite knit, she knits some of her own designs, she knits plenty of other things as well. And she's very good at, one of the things that drew me to her early on is that she uses quite a lot of different yarns, and particularly budget yarns, certainly in the earlier videos where I found her, which I found very interesting from my perspective. And she's not afraid to sort of make things up as she goes along. Things like using maybe like the Strange Brew pattern from Tin Can Knits and just sort of adjusting it as she needs to, and making alterations to make it fit her how she needs it to do, which is something that I, until recently really, hadn't felt comfortable doing. So watching people do that has always been quite inspiring. And yeah, she's just absolutely fab content, and I've watched her ever since, honestly. And she is, all of these four are ones that if I see a video come out, it will be added to my to watch later list. So I know I know their schedules. If they have schedules, I know their schedules. So Lauren and Shaiyeh both post at the back end of a week. So they will both, I'm filming this on a Friday. They will both have videos coming out today, hopefully, all being well, and I will be waiting for them, and I will either be watching them probably this evening after my other half's gone to bed, or they will go on my watch later list and they'll be watched this weekend. I absolutely love both of them. I really, really do. Lauren has gone from strength to strength and has actually set up her own yarn business as well as doing designs for herself, and yeah, just has an absolutely fantastic YouTube channel that I just sort of really love the ethos and the approach of. She also said something that really stuck with me and that I try and keep in my knitting practice again. She said about how sometimes patterns do a certain thing for you. I'm going to be wording this wrong, Lauren, I'm really sorry if I've got this wrong, please correct me. But basically the way that I took it was, she would say sometimes she'll be really craving a colour work yoke, so she'll knit the colour work yoke, and then she's not in the mood for the stockinette, so she puts that project to one side and she'll pick up whatever she's in the mood for next. Again, with back into the thing of, you don't have to finish a project straight away if it's not what's going to bring you joy. If it's going to bring you joy to do that colour work yoke and then to go move on to another colour work yoke, do it. And I think it's really important to remember that. I think it's really important to remember that sometimes this at the end of the day should be a hobby. We are not production knitters. It should be a hobby. And sometimes you just need to go, I don't want to work on that anymore. I'm happy leaving that where it is. I'll come back to it. I will do it eventually. And sometimes it's okay to go, I don't want to finish this. I'm going to frog it. And I think it's important to remember that. So that is something that I've taken from one of her very early episodes that I watched, and has stuck with me. It's absolutely stuck with me. And I try and sort of remind myself in my knitting practice. I can't always do that because I've got test knits and things, but I do, particularly if it's something that I'm knitting for myself without a deadline or anything. I try and remind myself, you don't have to be a perfectionist. You don't have to be a completionist. If you want to do this bit of it and then leave it for a bit, that's absolutely fine. So yeah. So those are my absolute favourite knitting channels. There's plenty more that I watch and I dip in and out of, but those are the ones that all I was trying to think of when I was listing them were really, who would I recommend? Who, if I was to have a friend want to get into knitting, who would I go watch these? And those, particularly those top four, Claude, Whitney, Lauren and Shaiyeh, absolutely. But yeah, I feel like PassioKnit Kelsie and aka Nora Knits are fast getting up there, very fast getting up there. And Breathing Yarn is also fab. There are some really, really fantastic creators out there. I'd be really interested to know who your favourite YouTubers are, because I think there is so much content out there on the internet that there's probably plenty that I've missed that I would love. So yeah, I would really, really love to know who your favourites are, particularly any small channels that need a bit of attention and a bit of love. I would love to go check out. As you can see from the numbers, with the exception of PassioKnit Kelsie, who is the biggest person on there, the smaller channels are the ones that I tend to like more. Of those top four, only one of them has over 5,000 views, and that's Claude. The other three have got, 5,000 views, 5,000 or less subscribers. When you get into the bigger, like the 10s to the 20s to the 30s, they tend to go lower down the list, and I don't know why that is. There's probably something there about when you get a bit more popular, your content changes maybe, or something like that. But part of me does really like, and it's one of the reasons I like test knitting, is being able to support smaller designers and things like that. I like to be able to test knit for smaller designers exactly in that sort of way. To support people who are out there following their dreams and really trying to make something of themselves outside of the normal realms of corporate ladder and everything. I just love it. So yeah, that is my recommendations. Yeah, drop any recommendations you have down below. I will put the links to all of these people's channels down below, and I urge you to go check them out if you haven't heard of them before. See if you like them, see if you don't. But yeah, let me know your favourites so I can go and check some new ones out. I have managed, while we've been here, to do a grand total of 3 rows on my on my Laalee, but we are getting there. We are getting there. It's slow and steady wins the race with this one, and we're now, that's probably got to be what, 10 inches, something like that. Maybe not 10 inches, but we are getting away on this one. If you're looking for an update on this, keep watching my podcast and hit like and subscribe, because probably in the next couple of weeks, I'm hoping to be able to get the first half of the full sort of vlog of knitting my wedding dress, which is this, out. If you are new here, I am getting married later this year, and I am knitting my wedding dress, and I'm knitting the Laalee dress as my wedding dress. And yeah, in a couple of weeks' time, I'm going to be putting out the first, probably one of 2, maybe 3 vlogs of the actual process of knitting this. So I've been taking clips, I've been updating everything, and we'll do a full sort of series of that. So if you're interested in that, and if you want to see when that comes out, hit like, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you know when I upload next. And I hope to see you all on the next one. I hope you got some good rows in. I hope you're having a good day, week, weekend, wherever you are. And I can't wait to see you on the next one. Thanks guys. Bye.